I haven't talked to my mother in 2 years. Yeah. And this is the why of this video series. I don't want this to happen to you and your son. We're going to mainly talk about 4 things. Number 1. As a single mom, you have immense emotional power over your son. To this, you might say, well, so does he. But at the end of the day, it is you who makes the decisions. Number 2. Your son doesn't learn from your teachings. In fact, he will learn most things from you by the way you emotionally respond to people and situations. Number 3. At some point, your son will eventually internalize all these emotional responses. And finally, number 4. Eventually, you and your boy will both fall victim to circumstances. So, in this series, I want to show you how you can protect your son without resorting to overprotective measures that suffocate him. Now, don't take this video series as an attack on single moms. In fact, I am the son of a single mom and I turned out relatively fine. But I'm not one of those guys on the internet that will tell you that you're doing a fine job. In fact, as the son of a single mom, I am the first to tell you that you are essentially playing a solo game meant to be a team sport. Please listen, and I cannot overstate this enough. As a single mom, you cannot ever be a true substitute for what is effectively a healthy male adult presence in the house. And guess what? You are not meant to. Now, am I saying that single moms cannot raise boys? No, I'm not saying that. In fact, as I said, I turned out fine. However, I would have benefited so much more and had so much more value and love in my life if my mother had bothered to find another partner. But more on that later. For now, I want to share with you what is practically my credentials for having an opinion on such things, and this is my personal life story and experience. My father was killed in a motorcycle accident back in 1996. My mother and I were devastated. In fact, she had to take antidepressants as medication, and at some point during her healing journey, I was left behind. I was never seen by a professional psychiatrist or psychologist. And as my mother grew more and more competent to actually take care of me again, she managed to eventually take care of my material needs. However, her ability to take care of my emotional needs left much to be desired. Now, don't get me wrong, she did what she could with the limited means she had at her time, because let's face it, taking antidepressants was considered very much taboo in rural Greece of the 2000s. I was left alone to figure things out for myself, what my father's death meant for me and her. At the same time, she was already trying to form an overprotective bubble around me. And this was comprised of 2 elements. Number 1, she would find any excuse to keep me inside the house. Now, I know she did this subconsciously, but still, harm came to me anyway from this type of behavior. Now, how do you keep a young boy inside the house? Well, first of all, feed him tons and tons of plastic. Now, what do I mean by plastic? I mean toys. Lots and lots of toys. In fact, I wager I have in my possession, even today, more toys than any other kid in my neighborhood combined, and that's saying a lot. As I grew older and plastic toys weren't enough to entertain me anymore, she would bring me movies. She would rent any movie she could find that is aimed to kids, so I could stay inside the house, where she could keep an eye on me at all times. As pre-adolescence kicked around, these movies were partially replaced by books. Now, there's nothing wrong with a boy reading books, you might say, and I would agree. But as they say in my country, everything is good in moderation. And then came video games. And this is what I have been talking about so far. At some point, your boy will internalize all those lessons that you have given him through your emotional responses. My mother's emotional responses to the world out there was that it was a dangerous and harmful place that could essentially kill me at any time, as it had done to my father. And I had believed her. In fact, video games became that final piece on that puzzle that fit right in, because they made me the architect of my own destruction. Not only was I super entertained by them, I would be the one who would come to my mother each and every week to ask for a new video game. And here we come to the 4th reason I made this series, because I firmly believe that at some point in your life and your son's, you will both fall victim to circumstances, and there is pretty much nothing you will be able to do about it. Now you might say, okay, What was the circumstance that happened to me and my mother? Well, it came in the form of a storm, believe it or not. A storm that damaged the local antennae that fed my entire town with signal. All cell phones were dead, including mine. Now I need to give you a bit of a backstory on this. I believe I would have never gotten out of that house, or it would have taken many more years for me to do so if cell phones hadn't been invented. Finally, my mother was confident enough I could leave the house, even though I was already 16 years old. However, now that she could call me wherever I was actually able to go outside. And I remember this as it was yesterday. Every few minutes I would do this, touching my pocket, just to make sure I had my cell phone with me, and actually make sure that I would not be the one who would be at fault for her having a panic attack for not being able to find me. Now, as I was relentlessly bullied behind the walls of my school, I had become some sort of a small legend outside of them. Because I had no other activities, I had become very proficient at playing video games. In fact, I had become so good that people would gather around me to watch me play competitively in my local net cafe. So the day the storm came in and destroyed the signal of my local area, I was at my local net cafe, doing what I always did, playing video games. And suddenly I felt a hand at the back of my nape. And I swear to God, I was turned around violently, and there was my mom, who lifted me up, Vader style, and started screaming in front of my face. Where were you? I had been calling you for hours. Don't you love me? Don't you understand? What could have happened to you? Why didn't you answer your phone? Don't you love me? And she grabbed me again and dragged me outside of that store and put me in a taxi that led us eventually home. You can imagine my street cred fell down the drain after this. But again, this is what troubles me to this day. What troubles me is that this was the traumatic event that led me to this following realization. My mother wasn't able to take care of me as I needed her to. Now, there's a lot more to my story as to why I'm not talking to my mother these days, and I will be sharing all that with you during this video series. But what I want you to take out of this is that during these videos, I don't want you to see me as this 40-year-old stranger on the internet, but as your future son, who has come from the future to tell you what you could have been doing right all along. So if you found value in this video already, leave a like and subscribe because it actually helps the channel a lot. See you on the next one. Well, that's about it.